Welcome to the 2026-2027 VIQRC Robotics Competition. And this year's game, Level Up.
Hello world, this is Chris with Elevations. Today we're going to do a video about the Level Up game. So obviously we showed the reveal and we know everything about it as far as the bean bags and the new setup with the different levels and how you can score. But today I want to go into a little bit more depth as far as the rules that have been released in the game manual, how teams actually achieve points, what the red bags, blue bags, yellow bags mean, where they need to be placed, and what the limitations are on the robot itself. In the game release video here, we can see the April tags on that top level tier. So that's the VEXIQ QR code tags to essentially allow the AI vision sensors to see that higher level. This could be used in a lot of different ways. It could be used for your AI system during your auton to be able to help line you up on that level, or to allow you to simply visualize within your code where your robot is pointing. So here's all the regular stuff that you already know from playing VEXIQ like you normally do. It's on a 6x8 rectangular field. We did upgrade from that 4x8 a number of years ago. And then you have a lot of different ways to score these bean bags. The higher the level of the place that you put the beanbag, the higher the number of points that you achieve. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but the goal is within the 60 seconds when you're doing your teamwork challenge, you are going to be moving your blue bags to the blue side, red bags to the red side. Now note, all the blues here are on the red scoring side. So you either have to traverse across the field and score it into your blue side, or you have to make a robot that is small enough to be able to fit underneath this bar or around this bar in some fashion to be able to score in that zone. Now, if we move on to the actual field overview, there are 16 blue bean bags and there are 16 total red bean bags. As we see on the field, you start with 8, and then you have 8 in your loading area. The red starts with 8 in the loading area. You do have 4 of these wild card yellows in the center. And an interesting aspect is you start with a yellow on your side. So your yellow beanbag is your preload. So that could be an easy way. Let's look back here. That could be an easy way where your robot simply just has to score it on your side, either to this red zone, to this zone here. It could obviously go up top, or it could go into these. The starting zones are going to be here or here, and we'll see that a little bit later in the manual, but there's a lot of different ways to achieve some points with that yellow preload. So let's move on to the actual layout of the field. We can see this here. Again, it's a nice top-down view. You have the blue bean bags here on the red side, and then you have the red on the blue side. Again, to note, you do start with that preload of the yellow, and your loading zone for the red side is here in this corner. Your loading zone for the blue side is in this corner. So there's a lot of different ways you can achieve a lot of things. With that first preload on the yellow, you potentially could just take these blues and throw them to the other side. So if you were able to pick that up and toss it to the other side, so then your alliance partner could score it, or you could grab it and traverse. The downfall here is you can only contact one at a time. This is the layout of what I just talked about as far as the scoring zone. So you do have these elevated platforms, as you see in these corners, and they are color-coded for the red and blue scoring areas. And then you do have the scoring area for red side here and blue side here. And then you have the loading zone for red here and blue here. Obviously, all of that information comes down to say you need to put those beanbags somewhere within that scoring zone. An interesting aspect to look at, again, we do have loaders again. Not my favorite aspect of this year's VEXIQ game, but that's where we are. So your loader would be in one of these positions, and then you have your 2 drivers that are here. Keep in mind, if you are scoring or the other person is scoring from this direction, if you're shooting onto this platform, for example, and it hits the other driver's leg, it is actually pulled off of the field. It's no longer a valid scoring element. So keep that in mind when you're in your loading zone. You don't get too close to your field, so you're going to be impacting a bean bag. Again, your loader is going to be loading into this loading zone right here. Same thing for this side. Now it looks like we have, again, the same full width of the field for your driving station. And then we do have your referees that are off to the side to be able to view everything. Now, this is some general information. You can look this over. It's just what they envision for the field itself and for the gameplay. Now, looking at how you score. So we looked previously at that scoring zone that's on the ground or on the field itself. If you get a matching beanbag on that floor score zone, it is 1 point. If you're able to get it on those elevated zones, however, you do multiply your points achieved a lot for every level up. So obviously 1 point in the floor, 3 points for that level 1, 6 points for level 2, 12 points for level 3, and 16 points for level 4. This is something that I really like this year, just like in the 2025-26 year. Everything is scored at the end of the match, as opposed to during the match play, like we saw when we're passing balls around, where it can be a lot more difficult for the referee to keep track of how many items were scored. This year, it's all just scored at the end of the match. Now, note in this area, you cannot be touching a beanbag at the end of the match in order for it to count. So what this essentially says is this blue is not scored because it's in a red zone. This yellow is scored because that is your wild card beanbag and it's scored in the red zone. This red, even though it is in with the red zone and over halfway into the scoring area, it doesn't actually count because it is in contact with this field scoring perimeter piece. This 2x that's right here. So if your beanbag is touching that 2x, it does not count. Now let's look a little bit more into this scoring pyramid itself. So obviously we have level 1, level 2, level 3, and then you have your floor stuff, but we're not really looking at the floor stuff right now. What we're looking at is how you score on this pyramid. Now they talk about the PET sheet, so that's just that thin piece of plastic. It has to be contacting that sheet in that level for it to count. So as we see here, the blue one, that does count for a level 1. These reds right here do count for level 2. Now, something to really look at here is even though the bottom one is touching level 2, it counts. The one above it is not contacting the PET sheet, but it is being supported by the beanbag that is contacting that PET sheet. The same thing for the third one on top. So all 3 of the beanbags in that stack count as level 2. Now the yellow one, again, is wild card, so it could be in either the blue or red scoring pyramid. But since it is being supported by the beanbags that are in contact with the lower scored zone, it's going to be considered a scored beanbag on the lower area, the lower tier. So even though it touches level 3, it actually is a level 2 scored beanbag. Now, again, we're looking at the top one, the level 4, the big points. This only counts for yellow beanbags. So your wild card beanbags that can be put elsewhere in the low scoring area, you can reserve them to score on the level 4 area. Obviously, again, in order to count, it can't be touching a robot. It has to be in contact with the PET sheet, and it has to be yellow. These red ones or the blue ones, even though you manage to get all the way up there, doesn't count at all. So don't waste your time or that bag itself scored up there. Now let's look at this. This is a really interesting aspect this year. We're going back to the capability of expanding. So once again, we have to meet the 11 by 20 by 15 restrictions at the beginning of the match. Okay, so then the same thing with the Red Alliance and Blue. Whoever's team one or printed first on the match list, they're on the red team. Whoever's second or printed second on the match list, they're the blue team. Now, after the game starts, so after you get your bada, you can expand. Once the match begins, robots may expand horizontally up to a length of 24 inches. The robot may never be larger than 11 by 24 and must always fit within 11 by 24 horizontal. An interesting aspect, vertical is entirely unlimited. So right here, right, they show 26 inches. So this bot, if it's folded all the way down, it's 18 inches long. Okay, so that means it's under 24 inches. Now, if it flips all the way back, it's going to be larger than 24 inches from front to back. So from this point to this point, it's larger than the 24-inch period. So you have to either have a mechanical block, which is usually ideal, or some type of a programming limit to disallow it from getting that long. So say if 24 inches is at this line, then this arm maximum rotate backwards should stop right there. So either you have a mechanical stop or something in your program that does not allow that motor to rotate that far back. But again, the cool part is you can go up as high as you would like. So even though the starting is 15 inches, if you want to be able to make it up to these level 4, then you can expand a lot higher and be able to dump it in there. All right, so scoring objects leaving the field. This is something that I mentioned a little bit earlier. If the beanbag itself leaves the field entirely, or if it contacts something outside of the field. That means if you're up against a wall, if it randomly shoots up and hits the ceiling, or if it hits one of the driver's leg or hand or anything along those lines, it's considered out of the field. So you have to be really conscious of where you're standing and not get too close to the field where it might touch your foot or it might touch your leg or it might touch your knee. If it touches the driver or anything other than that scoring platform, it is pulled off. It is out of the field. Now, again, this is something that I mentioned earlier. So the yellow is actually your preload. So that gives you a lot of variable options of what you can do with that first preload and how to score points before you start working with your blue and red bags. Again, not contacting any field elements excluding the floor, goals, or scoring objects. So the robot cannot be touching other stuff when it starts. That's an important aspect. Now, one piece that pretty much everybody at the game reveal was quite unhappy with, you heard the boos in the video.
Teams must work together to determine the most efficient way to play, as object possession is limited to one beanbag at a time. There are 3 ways to play. That's IQ or 5 stoppers.
Possession is limited to one beanbag at a time. That means you can't pick up multiple bags and you can't push multiple bags at the same time. That is a big limit. It's going to make things difficult to get big scores quickly because you have to grab one at a time. Now, you can grab one, shoot it towards the scoring area, grab another one, shoot it towards the scoring area. This could be a situation where one robot is essentially a collector and a shooter, and the other one's the one that actually grabs it and puts it in the scoring area. There's a lot of different ways you can accomplish this. It all depends, but again, with that limit, there's a big limit on what you can do with the game, especially considering the blues are so far away from the blue scoring area and the reds are so far away from the red scoring area. You're going to have to get a little bit inventive with how you're going to achieve your points. Now, the loading zone, this is quite similar to what we've gotten used to, with the exception of a couple years ago, no rolling. It can't be bouncing, it can't be rolling. Once you put it down, it has to stay in contact with the field. In this loading zone, you can only have one beanbag. If there's a beanbag in the loading zone and the loader does put another beanbag in there, it has to be removed. At the same time, if there's no beanbag in the loading zone and you place a beanbag there and you don't like the way you set it down as the loader or something along those lines, you cannot contact that beanbag again to move it around. Again, once it's put down, it can't be moved. And you cannot put it down and have it in contact with the human and the robot at the same time. All important information to pay attention to. Now, this goes into safety stuff and some of the different things. Now, I want to look at this. Okay, illegal parts. This is interesting because it says a legal part is grease, oil, graphite, etc., etc. We know we've seen people have issues with this in the past at Worlds. However, if we look further down, and this is going to be in R14 legal non-vex IQ components. Right here it says food safe lubricant, grease, oils, or other lubricants. So while at one point it says no lubricants, illegal parts, grease, oil, graphite, or other lubricants or plastic additives, and that is going to be under robot summary. So that basic stuff is the same stuff we saw with the 2526. However, as soon as we go down over to here with the R14, it says food safe lubricants should be allowed. So I'll just double check, right? Legal, non-vex IQ components. Robots are allowed to use the following additional components from sources other than Vex Robotics. Talks about rubber bands and all that kind of stuff. But a really big difference that I'm seeing this year is it is allowing lubricants, grease, oils, other lubricants. Now, an important aspect to remember when you're doing this, if you do add lubricants of some form, it shouldn't be extreme. You shouldn't be leaking lubricants all over the field. That's going to cause all kinds of problem with traction. It's going to mess up the field. It'll be difficult to clean. But it is interesting if you're going to have a high RPM system or even on your drivetrain, if you want to add a little bit of grease, a little bit of lube that stays on those gears, it will help with your tooth mesh on your gear system. So that's something new and interesting this year that's going to be allowed. I do note that it does mention, yes, right here. I've had a lot of people ask questions about this. Aerosol-based cooling free spray may be used to assist cooling motors. So if you take, for example, compressed air, flip that can upside down, pull the trigger, cold air, real cold air, don't touch it, comes out of that can. So what you can do, and our teams typically do, is have a can of compressed air at the competition and just kind of monitor the temperature of your motors. So if your motors do start overheating or just getting warm, give them a couple of shots of that cold air, help them stay cold. If they do overheat, they can stop working. So that's something to keep an eye on. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming out with this year's game manual. But I think, honestly, this is the biggest aspect, being that you can use some lubrication and the fact that you can now expand a little bit larger. So again, you do have the ability to go up to 24 inches and unlimited straight up. So that means your length can go to 24 inches and your height can go to 36 inches if you need to. Obviously, you don't need to get that high to be able to score into the level 4, but if you do all kinds of crazy stuff, you can get way up there and then just drop it down if you need to. So overall, this game seems like it could be interesting. Definitely don't like the single possession limit. However, there are a lot of interesting ways to score points. There's a lot of interesting obstacles on the field. And there's the variable of that yellow beanbag. I can certainly see a lot of these beanbags having issues staying together over the season, especially once these kids get a hold of them. But hopefully this will work out pretty well overall. Looking forward to seeing all your cool new ideas. If you have any comments or any fun ideas yourself for different ways to accomplish this particular challenge this year, go ahead and leave the comment below. My name is Chris. As always, I do hope you learned something today. Please like and subscribe below. Thanks for watching.